The rain hadn't stopped in 2 days. It drizzled over the broken skyline, tracing slow paths down shattered windows and pooling in potholes littered with ash and debris. For Amelia Torres, it had been 48 hours since she last slept, 48 hours since the world she knew collapsed into chaos. She crouched behind a rusted SUV on the edge of a deserted grocery store parking lot, her knuckles white around a fire axe she barely knew how to swing. The streets, once busy with honking horns and daily routines, now echoed with moans and shuffles, the haunting chorus of the undead. They moved slowly, but their persistence was terrifying. They didn't tire. They didn't turn away. They hunted with empty eyes and bloody jaws. Just 2 days ago, she was a high school biology teacher. Now, she was a survivor. The outbreak had started as whispers, news reports about a strange infection sweeping through coastal cities. Quarantines were announced, airports shut down, but it all unraveled too fast. People didn't understand how dangerous it was until it was far too late. Amelia had barely escaped the chaos in her apartment complex, narrowly slipping out through the fire escape while her neighbors screamed behind her. She still remembered the sound of Mrs. Klein's door bursting open. She had lived next door for 5 years, always sharing leftover cookies and holiday cards. Amelia saw her face again in her dreams, twisted and covered in blood, as she lunged at her own husband. Now, Amelia was alone. And she was scared. A distant metallic clang broke the silence. Amelia ducked instinctively, her breath caught in her throat. She peeked over the hood of the SUV. A figure was moving through the wreckage, fast and human. Not a zombie. She squinted. The figure stumbled, looked around frantically, then dove behind an overturned vending machine. The undead shuffled toward the sound, sniffing the air with vacant stares, but after a few minutes, they wandered off. Silence returned. Amelia waited. Then, cautiously, she crept forward. "Hey," she whispered hoarsely, trying not to draw attention. "You okay?" A boy peeked out from behind the vending machine, maybe 16 or 17, with messy dark hair and a backpack slung across his chest like a shield. His lip was bleeding, and his right arm looked bruised. "Don't come closer," he said, eyes wide with fear. "I'm not infected," Amelia said quickly, lowering her axe. "Just trying to help." They stared at each other for a few tense seconds. Finally, the boy nodded. "Name's Tyler." "Amelia." They shared a wary silence, both clearly unsure if they could trust the other. In this new world, trust was a currency more precious than food. She helped him to his feet, and they made their way into the grocery store through a broken side entrance. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of spoiled meat and mildew. The lights were dead, but sunlight filtered through cracked windows. It was as good a shelter as any. They barricaded the door with shopping carts and shelves, then collapsed behind the checkout counter, catching their breath. "What happened to you?" Amelia asked. "Got separated from my brother," Tyler said quietly. "We were heading out of the city, then they came. I ran. I didn't even look back." Amelia nodded slowly. "I lost everyone too." They didn't need to say more. The grief was there, in their voices, in their eyes, in the way they didn't ask each other about family or homes. After a moment, Amelia stood. "We should gather supplies. Anything that's still good. We may have to move again soon." Together, they scavenged the aisles. Canned food. Bottled water. Batteries. An old first aid kit with half its contents still usable. It wasn't much, but it would buy them time. As they worked, a faint sound echoed from outside, a distant, angry growl followed by a heavy thump. Then another. And another. Tyler froze, clutching a can of beans to his chest. Amelia grabbed the axe. Back behind the counter. Quietly. They slipped into the shadows just as the front doors shook violently. Something big was outside. And it wasn't leaving. Amelia's heart raced. She glanced at Tyler. He looked terrified, but something else flashed in his eyes too. Determination. Resilience. They didn't know each other. They had no reason to trust one another. But in this broken world, sometimes trust was the only thing left. The barricade rattled again, harder this time. Dust shook loose from the ceiling tiles, and somewhere deeper in the store, a display rack collapsed with a loud crash. Amelia pressed her back against the wall behind the checkout counter, her fingers wrapped tightly around the axe handle. Tyler crouched beside her, silent and wide-eyed, his breath fast and shallow. The thumping against the front door had changed rhythm, no longer the slow, aimless pushes of wandering undead. This was something larger. Stronger. Smarter? The two of them exchanged a glance, wordless but clear. They couldn't stay here. Just as Amelia was about to whisper a plan, a crackle of static jolted them both. The sound came from behind the counter, hidden beneath a pile of fallen candy wrappers and newspapers. Tyler lunged for it and pulled out a dusty, battery-powered radio, half-crushed, but miraculously still working. The static cleared for a moment, and a voice came through, low and cautious. To any survivors in the South District, we are located at the old transit hub. Repeat, the transit hub on 8th and Monroe. We have food, shelter, and safety, limited space. Do not bring the infected. The message repeated itself. Tyler stared at Amelia. Did you hear that? She nodded slowly. I heard it. But we don't know if it's real. Could be a trap. Or bait. But what if it's not? Tyler's voice trembled with hope. We can't stay here. That thing outside, it's not going away. Another crash, louder, followed by the shriek of metal bending under pressure. Amelia stood up, scanning their surroundings. We grab what we can carry and move out the back. Quietly. If it doesn't see us, we might get away clean. They packed fast. Tyler grabbed the radio, even though the battery light was flashing red. Amelia slung a duffel bag over her shoulder filled with cans, bandages, and water. She led the way toward the storage area in the back of the store. The hallway was dark, lit only by pale daylight seeping through a small skylight. Boxes of expired cereal and moldy produce lined the floor. Amelia pushed open the emergency exit door just a crack and froze. 3 of them. Zombies. Lurking just outside in the alley. Their flesh was gray and bloated from days of decay. One dragged a broken leg behind it. Another turned its head sharply, sniffing the air, and let out a low groan. Tyler whispered, "Back?" Amelia shook her head. "They haven't seen us yet." She spotted a metal pipe leaning near the exit. Quietly, she picked it up, weighed it in her hand, and handed Tyler the axe. "I'll distract them," she said. "You take the right, go through the alley, loop around to the front. Wait for my signal." "No," Tyler said. "You'll get killed." "I've dealt with worse," she lied. "Go." Tyler hesitated, then nodded. He slipped into the shadows while Amelia counted under her breath. When she reached 5, she shoved the door open with a loud bang and hurled the pipe across the alley. It clanged loudly against a dumpster. The zombies turned immediately, groaning and stumbling in that direction. Amelia ducked behind the doorway, praying it was enough. Then a scream split the air. Tyler. Amelia didn't think. She sprinted out into the alley, heart pounding. She found Tyler grappling with a 4th zombie that had come from behind the trash bins. It had pinned him against a wall, its jaws snapping inches from his face. Amelia raised the axe and brought it down with a scream of her own. The blade hit bone. The creature collapsed. Tyler pushed it off, gasping. "Thanks," he panted. "No time," she replied, yanking him to his feet. "Run." They bolted down the alley, weaving between debris, climbing over a collapsed fence, and finally stumbling into a side street covered in broken glass and twisted signs. Behind them, the shrieking of the undead faded. For now. They didn't stop until they reached an old parking garage. Inside, it was damp, quiet, and empty, just concrete pillars and shadows. They climbed to the 2nd level, barricaded the stairwell with an old tire rack, and collapsed behind a pillar. breathing hard. Alive. For now. Tyler turned to her, hands still shaking. You saved me. Amelia nodded, exhausted. We're a team now, kid. The radio hissed in her bag. Repeat, the transit hub on 8th and Monroe. They were 6 blocks away. And tomorrow, they'd risk everything to reach it. Morning light crept through the broken windows of the parking garage, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Amelia woke first, her back sore from sleeping against the tire rack, her hand still gripping the axe. She glanced over. Tyler was curled up beside a cardboard box, the radio tucked under his arm like a lifeline. Time to move, she said softly, nudging his shoulder. He blinked awake, groggy and stiff. Already? Every minute we wait, that message could stop playing. If the transit hub is real, we can't miss our chance. Tyler nodded, rubbing his eyes. They gathered their gear, splitting the weight of supplies between them. Amelia led the way, slipping quietly down the stairwell and out into the misty gray of a ruined city morning. The streets were still. Abandoned. A thin fog clung to the air, muffling their footsteps and hiding everything more than a block away. The eerie quiet made every creak of metal and rustle of paper sound like a gunshot. They kept low and fast, weaving through alleyways and broken buildings. Amelia's internal map told her they were 3 blocks from Monroe Street. But as they turned a corner near an old pharmacy, something didn't feel right. Stop, she said, holding out her arm. Tyler froze beside her. The street ahead was littered with bodies, not moving, not moaning. Just lying there. Zombies? Tyler asked. Amelia narrowed her eyes. Too neat. They're all in a line. That's when the sniper shot rang out. A chunk of brick exploded inches from Amelia's head. She ducked, pulling Tyler down with her. Go back. Go, she hissed, dragging him into the pharmacy. Inside, they crouched behind a checkout counter, hearts racing. Footsteps thudded from above, someone on the 2nd floor. We're not infected. Amelia shouted. We're just trying to get to the transit hub. No reply. Then glass shattered in the back room, and a figure appeared, a man in torn combat gear with a hunting rifle slung over his shoulder and madness in his eyes. You're trespassing, he said. This street's under my protection. You should have stayed hidden. Amelia raised her hands. We don't want trouble. We'll leave. No, the man snarled. You could be infected. Can't take chances. He raised the rifle. A blur of motion, Tyler tackled him from the side. The rifle clattered across the floor. Amelia grabbed it, spun, and aimed it straight at the man's chest. Back off, she shouted. The man laughed, unhinged. You think people are your problem? Wait until you see what's out there at night. He backed toward the stairwell and disappeared without another word. Amelia locked the back door and slumped against it, shaking. Tyler looked at her, stunned. What was that? Not all the monsters are dead, she said grimly. Let's keep moving. They climbed out through the pharmacy's roof access and crossed over a fallen billboard into the next block. From the high ground, they could finally see it, the transit hub. A chain-link fence surrounded the parking lot, and the building itself had lights, real, working lights. Hope surged in Tyler's chest. We're almost there. But then, a scream echoed down the street. A woman's voice. Amelia froze. Tyler looked at her. We should help. It could be a trap, she said. Just like that sniper. It could be someone luring survivors in. But it might not be, Tyler insisted. What if it's someone like us? Amelia hesitated. She hated the decision. Hated that saving someone could now mean dying herself. But she nodded. Stay low. We check it out fast, no hero moves. They crept down a side alley and peered into a collapsed laundromat. The scream had come from within. A woman in a nurse's uniform was trapped under a fallen beam, a group of zombies slowly converging on her from across the room. "Help!" she cried, spotting them. Without a word, Amelia rushed in. Tyler followed. Amelia took the lead, swinging her axe with grim precision. One zombie's head split open. Another went down with a rifle but to the jaw. Tyler helped lift the beam off the woman while Amelia held the line. The nurse was limping, but alive. "Thank you," she gasped. "My name's Sophia." "Come on," Amelia said. "You're with us now." As the sun broke through the clouds, the three of them made their way toward the transit hub, hopeful but wary. A safe zone was in sight. But trust, Amelia knew, could be just as dangerous as the undead. The gates to the transit hub stood tall, reinforced with welded steel and barbed wire. Two men in mismatched military gear stood at the entrance, rifles slung lazily across their backs. One of them raised a hand as Amelia, Tyler, and Sophia approached. "Stop right there," he barked. "Hands up." "Slow." Amelia hesitated, then raised her arms, nodding for the others to follow. They dropped their weapons carefully, rifle, axe, crowbar, and stepped closer under the wary gaze of the guards. "We're not infected," Amelia called out. "We heard the broadcast. We're just looking for safety." The second man, younger and twitchier, scanned them from head to toe. "Anyone get bit?" "No," Sophia said quickly. "Just tired and hungry." The first guard signaled to someone inside. A moment later, the gate creaked open, just wide enough for them to pass through. Inside the walls, the atmosphere shifted immediately. The chaos of the outside world was muted here. The air was tense but organized. Small tents and makeshift shelters dotted the cracked pavement of the old bus station. A generator hummed near the central building. People, dozens of them, moved with purpose, eyes sharp, movements cautious. A woman in her 40s stepped forward, wearing a patched-up jacket and a radio headset. Her hair was tied back tight, and her face showed the kind of wear that didn't come from age alone. "I'm Marla. I run things here," she said. "You've arrived just in time. We're nearly at capacity." She eyed them with a commander's judgment. "We'll check you for bites, then give you a place to sleep. You'll be assigned to a rotation, work, guard duty, supply runs. Everyone pulls their weight. No exceptions." Tyler looked around, wide-eyed. "This place, it's real." "For now," Marla replied. "Come with me." They were ushered into a small room inside the main terminal. A medic checked them over, no bites, no signs of infection, and issued them wristbands, green for new arrivals. Sophia sighed with relief. "I can't believe we made it." But Amelia was watching the walls, the guards, the way some of the other survivors looked down when Marla passed by. This place was safe, but only on the surface. They were assigned cots in a shared tent near the north gate. Amelia sat with her back to the wall, scanning the camp, noting exit points, weapon placements, and who watched who. That night, a bell rang through the camp. Everyone gathered for what Marla called a status briefing. She stood on a makeshift platform with two guards behind her. "We're alive because we have rules," she began. "And rules only work if everyone follows them." She pointed to a man kneeling in front of the platform. His hands were tied behind his back, and his face was swollen with bruises. This man stole food from the infirmary. He put lives at risk. And in this world, we don't have room for selfishness. Amelia felt Tyler tense beside her. Sophia clutched her arm. Marla nodded at one of the guards. Without hesitation, the guard pulled the man to his feet and dragged him toward the front gate. "No," the man sobbed. "Please. I was hungry, my kid, please." The gate opened. They shoved him out and closed it behind him. Seconds later, the screams started. Tyler turned away, eyes filled with horror. "This isn't right," he whispered. "It's survival," Sophia muttered, looking pale. "This is what the world is now." Back in the tent that night, no one spoke for a long time. The silence was heavier than before. Amelia stared at the ceiling of the tent. This place is safe, but it's not free. Tyler finally asked, do we stay? She didn't answer. Not yet. Because deep inside, Amelia knew something was off. Not just the rules. Not just Marla. Something was hiding behind the safety. And tomorrow, she intended to find out what it was. Night came again, bringing with it the low hum of the generator and the quiet shuffle of anxious survivors. Amelia lay awake on her cot, staring at the canvas above her. Tyler and Sophia were asleep beside her, but her mind wouldn't rest. Not after what she'd seen at the status briefing. She slipped out of the tent without a sound, her steps practiced and silent. She moved through the camp like a shadow, blending into the quiet. Guards patrolled in regular patterns, predictable ones. That was their first mistake. Behind the infirmary, she found what she was looking for, a locked storage shed with no windows and a fresh set of muddy footprints outside the door. There was something off about it. It didn't look like a place for food or medical supplies. It looked like it was meant to keep people out, or maybe, keep something in. She crouched beside the door, inspecting the lock. It was newer than the hinges. Clean. Recently used. She started looking for another way in, but the sound of boots crunching on gravel made her duck into the shadows. A figure emerged from the infirmary, Marla. Amelia held her breath as she watched Marla approach the shed with a ring of keys. She opened it slowly, peered inside, and said something to someone, or something. Then she closed the door and locked it again, slipping back into the building without a second glance. Amelia waited a few minutes before returning to the tent. Her heart was racing. She didn't have answers yet, but she had a new question. Who, or what, was Marla keeping in that shed? The next morning, Amelia sat on a crate with Tyler and Sophia, pushing dry rations around her plate. Something's wrong here, she finally said. Tyler looked up. Yeah. We saw that last night. No, I mean something worse. People are going missing. Quietly. Not just punished, vanishing. Sophia nodded slowly. I noticed that too. There was a woman named Annie in the med tent the day we got here. She had a sprained ankle. I haven't seen her since. Tyler frowned. What are you saying? Marla's getting rid of people? I don't know, Amelia said. But I saw her last night. She went to that locked shed behind the infirmary. I think someone's inside. Tyler leaned closer, voice low. We need to find out what's going on. If there's something wrong with this place, we need to know before we get too deep. That night, they came up with a plan. Tyler would create a distraction at the South Watchtower, nothing big, just enough to pull a few guards away. Amelia and Sophia would sneak to the shed, break in, and find out the truth. The plan unfolded like clockwork. A small fire lit up near the south fence, just enough to stir panic. 2 guards sprinted off to investigate. Amelia and Sophia moved quickly, their hearts pounding. Sophia had stolen a pair of wire cutters from the tool shed, and within seconds, they snipped through the lock. The shed door creaked open. Inside, it was dark. A foul stench filled the air. And then they heard it, a whimper. Hello? Amelia whispered. A figure shifted in the corner. Thin. Pale. Shackled. Oh my God, Sophia gasped. It was a teenage boy, no older than 15. His eyes were sunken, and his skin was bruised. He looked at them with disbelief. You're not them, he said weakly. Amelia dropped to her knees. What's your name? Eli, he whispered. They said I was infected. But I'm not. I swear. They just locked me up. Sophia checked his arms, no bite marks. No wounds. Come on, Amelia said, freeing him. We're getting you out of here. They slipped through the shadows, avoiding the guards, meeting Tyler near the north end of the camp. We can't stay, Amelia said. This place isn't what it claims to be. Tyler nodded grimly. Then we run. Behind them, the bell rang again, another briefing was about to begin. But Amelia, Tyler, Sophia, and the boy named Eli were already gone, slipping through a tear in the fence and vanishing into the city once more. They had escaped the walls. But now they knew the truth. Sometimes, hiding from the undead is safer than trusting the living. The city above was no longer familiar. Broken buildings leaned against each other like weary soldiers. Smoke drifted from distant fires. The streets whispered of old lives and fresh death. And somewhere behind them, Marla's camp stirred with the knowledge that 3 survivors, and one hidden secret, had slipped through the cracks. Amelia led the group north, toward the subway lines. Tyler carried Eli on his back. The boy was too weak to run, but he clung on with a stubborn will to live. I heard stories, Sophia said, scanning the ruins. There's a shelter down in the tunnels. One of the old maintenance hubs, sealed off before things got bad. Some said it's safe. Food. Water. Maybe even power. It's better than going back, Amelia replied. Let's find it. They climbed through a shattered stairwell that once led to the city's underground transit system. Graffiti lined the cracked tiles. Blood, too. The rails stretched like black veins into the dark. The smell hit first, mold, oil, and something else. Decay. Amelia clicked on her flashlight. Stay close. They moved carefully, avoiding old debris and half-eaten corpses. Rats skittered along the walls, their eyes glinting red in the beam of light. Then, footsteps. Not theirs. They froze. A scraping sound echoed from the tunnel ahead. Tyler lifted his axe. Sophia raised her crowbar. Amelia signaled for silence. Out of the shadows came a figure, dirty, thin, but alive. He raised his hands. Hey, easy. Not a biter. Just a man looking to stay that way. Amelia lowered her weapon slightly. You live down here? The man nodded. Name's Rook. Used to be a train mechanic. Now I'm the closest thing this place has to a tour guide. You know where the shelter is? Sophia asked. He grinned. Lucky you. You're standing right above it. Rook led them down an emergency shaft, past rusted gates and through narrow service tunnels until they reached a sealed door marked B43. It took 3 tries and a wrench to pry it open. Inside was a small miracle. A hidden bunker carved out beneath the subway, a maze of old rooms and flickering lights powered by a solar rig on the surface. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with old canned goods, bottled water, even medicine. Amelia couldn't believe it. They had found something rare, a place untouched. Safe. For now. Rook showed them around. There were more of us, once. A couple families. Few loners. But food ran low. Some went up top. Some didn't come back. I stayed. Figured if the world wants to eat itself, I'll just stay underground and let it. That night, they shared stories around a dim lantern. Eli ate real food for the first time in weeks. He smiled, a soft, almost forgotten expression. But Amelia couldn't relax. Not fully. Because even here, beneath the surface, the past followed them. Tyler leaned in, whispering. You think Marla will come after us? She will, Amelia said. She doesn't leave loose ends. Rook heard. He tapped a pipe. These tunnels? They go everywhere. And they echo. If someone comes looking, you'll hear them before they find you. But late that night, as Amelia sat near the entrance with her flashlight dimmed, she heard something new. A sound she didn't expect. Crying. Not from any of them, but from deeper in the tunnels. Low. Hollow. Human. Sophia stirred beside her. Did you hear that? Yeah, Amelia whispered. She stood, gripping her crowbar. Whatever peace they had found here, it was already cracking. Because in a world ruled by the undead, even safety beneath the ground came with a price. And some shadows didn't stay buried. The next morning came without sunlight, just the same dim flicker of old bulbs strung through the underground bunker. Amelia hadn't slept. She kept hearing it. That crying. Low. Broken. Human. But no one else was missing. Everyone was accounted for. Eli, Tyler, Sophia, even Rook, they were all still there. So who was crying in the tunnels? Amelia decided she couldn't ignore it any longer. She told no one, not yet. Just slipped out before the others stirred, flashlight in hand, crowbar gripped tight. The tunnels beyond the bunker were colder. Narrower. Filled with stale air and dust from a world long forgotten. Her boots scraped softly against the floor, the sound swallowed by the dark. The crying came again. This time, closer. She turned left, then down another service passage. Then she found the door. It was rusted, half off its hinges, marked with faded spray paint, danger, keep out. Amelia hesitated. Then pushed through. What she saw inside made her stop cold. It wasn't just one person crying. There were several of them, 5 maybe more, huddled together behind old chain-link fencing. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow. Clothes torn. They looked, almost feral. Like they'd been down there for too long. One of them stepped forward. A woman, barely older than Amelia, hair matted with filth. "Help us," she rasped. "Please." Amelia opened her mouth to respond, then spotted it. A bite mark. Not fresh. But not healed either. Another man behind the fence was twitching slightly, his eyes red and cloudy, his lips blistered. The infection had taken root. Not fully turned, but something worse. Half turned. Half conscious. Still human. But slowly fading. "What is this place?" Amelia whispered. "Rook," the woman said, barely audible. "He said he'd help, said we weren't sick enough to kill." Amelia took a shaky step back. Suddenly a voice came from behind her. "I was hoping you wouldn't find this." "Rook." He stood in the passage, holding a shotgun. Not aimed, but not lowered either. "They were part of the first group down here," he said quietly. "Got infected, but didn't turn. Not completely. I couldn't bring myself to kill them." "You locked them up?" Amelia snapped. "You kept them down here like animals?" "I gave them food. Water. I kept them alive," Rook said. "What else was I supposed to do? Throw them to the surface and let the monsters finish them off? Or worse, Marla?" She didn't have an answer. Because what he'd done was awful. But also understandable. In a world where morality bent under survival, even good choices could look monstrous. Amelia lowered her crowbar. "Does anyone else know?" "No," Rook said. "And I need it to stay that way." "I'm not Marla," she said. "I won't hurt them. But the others, Tyler, Sophia, they deserve to know the truth." Rook looked at her, eyes tired. "They'll leave. And they'll take Eli. And then I'll be alone down here with ghosts." "No," she said softly. "They won't leave. Not yet. But we do need to make a choice." Later that night, the group gathered in the central room of the bunker. Amelia told them everything. About the infected survivors. About Rook's decision. About what she'd seen in the shadows. Tyler was furious. Sophia looked sick. Eli said nothing, he just held Amelia's hand and stared into the lantern light. "We're already hiding from the dead," Sophia said. "Now we're hiding from the almost dead too?" "No," Amelia said. "We face it. Together." And for the first time in days, they all agreed on something. They couldn't run anymore. They had to fight for something. Even if it meant defending a broken underground shelter filled with painful truths. Even if it meant drawing the attention of the very thing they fled from. Because in the end, trust wasn't about safety. It was about standing your ground, especially when it would be easier to run. The air in the tunnels had changed. A pressure, subtle but building, like the city itself was holding its breath. Amelia felt it in her bones as she and Tyler reinforced the bunker's front entrance with scrap metal and loose piping. Rook had been the first to hear the noise, boots in the tunnels. A slow, deliberate march. Marla was coming. They tracked us, Tyler muttered. I told you she wouldn't let us go. Amelia nodded. She wants Eli back. Maybe the rest of us dead. She can't risk the truth about her camp getting out. Sophia peered down the tunnel with binoculars stolen from an old train security booth. 3. Maybe 4 armed. More behind. Probably using the undead as cover, like she always does. She's bringing a horde? Rook asked, horrified. No, Amelia said. She is the horde. Just hiding behind human skin. The group worked quickly. They sealed side tunnels, stacked crates and old train parts into barricades, and armed themselves with whatever weapons they had, an axe, a crowbar, a couple of scavenged pistols with limited ammo. Even the infected survivors behind the gate stirred at the noise. Some whimpered. Others hissed softly. Their minds half faded, but something primal stirred. Amelia stood before them. You didn't choose this. But neither did we. If we survive today, I'll make sure you're not forgotten. The woman she had spoken to before nodded weakly. There was still a flicker of understanding in her eyes. Then came the first echo. A metal clang. A boot step. And Marla's voice, cold and certain. I know you're in there, Amelia. I gave you shelter. I gave you protection. And you stole from me. Amelia stepped out from the barricade just far enough for her voice to carry. You lied to people. You controlled them. You traded their lives for your safety. I built a system that worked, Marla replied. You're just too soft to understand that. I understand enough, Amelia snapped. You survive by fear. We survive by trust. A long silence followed. Then, have it your way. Gunfire exploded through the tunnel. Tyler and Sophia returned fire while Amelia pulled Eli behind cover. Rook threw a smoke flare down the hall, buying them seconds. Seconds they desperately needed. The fight was brutal and fast. One of Marla's men fell to a headshot. Another was dragged into the shadows by something else entirely, one of the half-turned infected, loose from their cage. Chaos tore through the tunnels. Screams echoed. Bullets ricocheted. And in the confusion, Amelia saw her, Marla, dressed in black, shotgun in hand, pushing forward with a cold, ruthless calm. Amelia rushed her. They met in a burst of violence, Marla firing, Amelia dodging, slamming her crowbar across Marla's ribs. The older woman grunted but didn't fall. She tackled Amelia into the wall, gripping her throat. You're too late, she hissed. The world's already gone. There's no rebuilding it. Amelia coughed out her reply. Then we'll build something better. Tyler crashed into them from the side, knocking Marla off. Sophia fired a warning shot, close enough to make Marla freeze. Amelia stood, breathing hard. You can walk away, she said. Leave. Or we finish this here. Marla looked around. 2 of her people were gone. The others were wounded. And behind Amelia, her ragtag group stood together, even Rook, bleeding but upright. Even the half-turned survivors, watching with strange silence. Marla spat at the ground. You'll die down here. Maybe, Amelia replied. But not today. Marla stepped back, weapon lowered. Then turned. And disappeared into the dark. Hours passed. The group stood in stunned silence as the threat faded. Later, they buried the fallen, Rook's friend from the tunnel who had finally turned and attacked, one of Marla's soldiers who hadn't made it out, and a stranger who'd died trying to protect a boy he barely knew. They reinforced the bunker better than before. Found more supplies. Even a backup generator. Hope flickered again. Eli's fever broke. He laughed for the first time in weeks. And in that echoing underground world, something changed. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was home. The end.